My name is Susie Levitsky, and I'm an occupational therapist and a universal design consultant. I work with people who have had injuries or illnesses. We help them as occupational therapists to be rehabilitated and get back into performing their functional activities of daily living that they were doing prior to their accident or their injury. I often look at their homes and see how we can make their home more livable and more enjoyable and more functional and safe for them so that they can experience a nice functional living environment and they can function on an everyday basis independently or as independently as they can based on their illness or injury. Our population's aging in general, and because the population is aging, one of the biggest concerns are for seniors and falls. And falls tend to be the biggest concern because they lead to major injuries such as head injuries, hip fractures that can lead ultimately to death. So what we want to do is we want to try to make our environments more safe and functional and livable for people so that they're eliminating the possibility of those falls. And the falls can contribute Canadians to about 6% of injuries every year. And although our society is aging, people are more active than they ever have been, and they don't like to acknowledge sometimes that they have limitations. They feel that there's a stigma against being able to admit that they can't do things as easily as they were doing before, or they're having trouble with certain activities such as taking care of their self-care or being able to get into a bathtub independently. People don't like to admit that they have those limitations. It's better to look like you're doing everything on your own and risk a fall than to have an environment that's safer for you because it has that negative social stigma. People don't always think of limitations as just being physical limitations. There are also hearing limitations, visual limitations. As we age, our sight and our hearing decreases, and also cognitive limitations. People who are older tend to be more forgetful. They're possibly leading to diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other cognitive disabilities. So we don't always think of a limitation as just a physical limitation and decreased physical strength. We have to look at all of the senses and how they contribute to our sense of safety and our sense of being able to look after ourselves independently. When we look at changing an environment to make it more functional, more safe and easier to use, we have to keep in mind that everyone is of a different shape, a different size, a different age. You've got multi-generations of people living in a home at one time. You've got people who are 6'1" and 4'9". You've got adults and children living together. You've got elderly parents living in a family where there are healthier adult children helping to take care of them. So we have to think that when we make changes to the environment, we keep in mind that it's not necessarily the one person who has limitations that we're making the changes for. We have to make the changes for everyone who's living in that environment. When we look at homes and how we make these changes, people tend to think, oh, well, if I'm going to make it accessible or barrier-free, it's going to look institutional. And that's far from the case. When we look at a person's home, we take into consideration what their functional abilities are, what their needs and goals are, and what their likes and dislikes in terms of their decorating tastes are. And we try to match that up as best as possible. There are so many products that are available that are beautiful and functional and allow a person to be independent. And it really makes a statement when you can go into a home that is completely accessible and barrier-free and does not have one tiny piece of equipment that makes it look as if it's institutional. You feel like you're walking into a beautiful home, and that's what you think of first. You don't think, oh, someone in this home has a disability or a limitation. You think, wow, what a beautiful home. And that's our goal, to make it beautiful, functional, and safe for a person to live and enjoy their home. When I talk about visitability, I speak about people being able to come into your home without the worry that there are barriers. The bathroom, the kitchen, the dining room, and the front door are usually the biggest barriers because you often have steps into the home. Hallways are too small, so we try to focus on the doorway, the kitchen, and the bathroom as the three main areas to expand a home, to increase its visitability and allow other people to come into your home that wouldn't necessarily be able to come in because of their own limitations. If you make the changes to your home before something traumatic happens, such as a fall, such as a stroke, such as a heart attack that places limitations on a person, and you make the changes before any of these things happen, looking forward, then it gives you the opportunity to make a better decision about what the changes are going to be. You're not as rushed. You don't have to worry about getting things in as quickly, and then it's more likely to be done in a haphazard and more institutional way. If you can make the changes beforehand, then you can be proactive in thinking about how you want your environment to be, so that if there is an accident or an illness or an injury that does happen along the way, then you're all set. You don't have to worry about scrambling at the last minute and putting this all together in a way that really doesn't work as well for you as it could if you were proactive. When you have a living environment that you enjoy being in, it actually contributes to your overall enjoyment of your daily living, and that in turn increases your health and your overall lifespan. So if you're living in an environment that isn't accessible, that isn't working for you, that's not safe, this is only going to increase the amount of stress, and that has an actual detriment to your overall living, which can affect your health.